All right, today I'm rewatching my homemade Superman scene. This is from the 1978 film Superman, which is one of my favorite movies when I was a little kid. Possibly my favorite movie for the first 10 years of my life. I was obsessed with this. So let's take a look.
On this episode of Homemade Movies, we're doing the 1978 classic Super...
Okay, so like I said before, I tried to incorporate these intros that Cinefix forced me to do, which I didn't want to do, but I always worked it into whatever the first shot was. So when I was planning out where the scene starts, I would make sure that that first one was a character I could play and I could do the intro right into it. But in all of that planning, I forgot one very important thing. Can you tell what it is? Let's watch a little closer.
Superman the movie. I gotta go save Lois.
Here we are. This shot. Running across the street. There's my Mustang. Okay. Iconic. Classic. It's Superman opening his shirt. What did I forget? The glasses. I had the glasses. We set up lights. We set up, the camera, everything across the street. And when I went back to editing, I realized I forgot the thick Clark Kent glasses. Could have kicked myself, but, stuff happens. Okay. That's my backyard. I love we didn't have a phone booth, so we did. That's my really good friend Nick. He's in a few episodes. That was a really cool forced perspective shot, him flying up there. Okay, so for this episode, we'll talk about Lois in a sec. But in this episode, there's a bunch of shots of the crowd. So we actually invited over a bunch of friends, and we paid another friend to make a bunch of food that she did catering, and it was like her famous mac and cheese and all this stuff. And so like, we'll have food, come on over, because we can't pay a bunch of people. We didn't have the budget for that, but it was like, have a good time. We've got a bunch of wigs and costumes. We just need a crowd. Here's a camera. Here's a fake film camera. You guys are gonna be the press. So that's how we did all those shots. And then Hari as Lois Lane is awesome. These shots are great. Love mixing the miniatures. Okay, here we go. And now they're falling. And of course, this is the famous scrolling background that we made in the house right here.
Easy miss.
There it is. You gotta watch the behind the scenes. The way we had that scrolling and we're just standing there in front of it. One of the coolest tricks we ever did in homemade movies, I think.
I cannot believe that he got her.
So people in the living room. And then kind of back to mostly miniatures. Couple inserts here of the live action stuff, but built that really tall building. Yeah, okay, so this is a fun score to do. Usually I was so pressed for time, I was doing these like Saturday, Sunday, the music. But I mean, gosh, John Williams, this score, classic. I grew up with this, and it was one of the first CDs I ever bought was this score, so it was fun to do some of the music, although it was very tedious and it was very last minute, and I never had a second off from doing the show for months and months and months, but it was very satisfying to look back and listen to just the music alone sometimes. Forget all the cool special effects and tricks that we did, but yeah, really cool to do this episode just because I was obsessed with Superman growing up and this movie, so this was a fun one. Okay, so the next one is a big one, and it's kind of a long story, but in a nutshell, it's the Star Wars Death Star trench run. Huge, huge scene. By far the longest episode we ever did, 5 minutes. It stars Chris Hardwick as Luke Skywalker. It's huge. This is the one that I show people all the time of showing an example of a great homemade movies episode. But it took so long and it was so difficult that we actually had to skip a week to accommodate how long it was going to take and ask Cinefix if we could have an extra week. So I'll talk more about it in the next episode. But what you'll see, well, in the next week's episode, we did 2 clip shows. Kind of classic sitcom TGI Friday style, which is like, hey, we don't have an episode this week, but we have a contractual obligation to deliver kind of 2 videos, because it'd be like the behind the scenes and the main video. This side by side is a 3rd supplemental video. So that's why you'll see the next 2 episodes are just 2 clip shows. That's what I came up with, and I pitched to Cinefix when I was like, hey, we need an extra week to do this Star Wars one with Chris Hardwick and everything that they helped line up and stuff. So I'll see you next week for the 2 clip shows, and then after that is our massive Star Wars episode.